Detective Comics 1061, which is written by Mariko Tomaki and Nadia Shamus, with art by Ivan Reese. So this is the final issue of this run, of this arc. We're starting a new team next issue, and this wraps up the storyline with what the Riddler's up to and the various characters. Donovan's daughter, Caroline, all that stuff comes to a head. And I'd say the issue, like, I enjoyed most of it quite a bit. I think it's got some fun moments. I like some of the kind of like the hard hitting stuff towards the end with Deb, kind of like, my daughter's like made these choices and I have to kind of like live with that, and Batman tries to console her, and it has a good feeling to it. I will say there's a little bit of confusion I have about some of the explanation in the middle that, like, I actually don't know after reading this, because it brings up the tower, right? Arkham Tower. And it brings up that all these victims, or all the people who were doing these crimes over the course of this arc, were in a support group with Chase Meridian. And there's a bit of narration from Batman that kind of makes it sound like he thinks Chase Meridian might be in some way responsible or a villain, but then it's never brought up again. And I actually don't know if it was just happens, like, she brought them all together, but they themselves went on to,
It was they were all part of this, like, of a group where they were trying to process guilt over something.
Yeah, it was a group therapy session that we're going through. Yeah.
And it was through that guilt is how Riddler was able to manipulate them into doing things. But then it also turned out that Caroline was almost above the guilt, whereas it was very confusing. I wasn't following her thread very well.
It was very convoluted in its logic, and I think that was a bit of a disappointment. It kind of hurt what it was doing.
And it doesn't help that this feels truncated. This felt like they were putting in a bunch of exposition that, if it was doled out over, let's say, 5 issues instead of 3, it might have been a little bit more clear. So I wonder how much of that is the creative team coming in.
Yeah, maybe they were given, like, you have to get this done by issue, 1061, and that's what you've got.
And then something that I learned in film school and in writing classes, where you don't introduce something new in the third act, and now all of a sudden Talia is being introduced in dealing with the Riddler. Is she's also part of this scheme, which I wasn't following.
Well, Talia was seen before this in the arc.
She was?
Yeah, like Batman traced something to her like 2 issues ago.
Oh, shoot, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you read too many comics.
No, Talia did come up before now, and then the arc.
Okay, well then, I take back what I said. That's on me. But yeah, I didn't remember Talia.
That said, though, I do kind of admit it's like an extra layer that it doesn't really need. It just adds, an extra. I think it's juggling a little bit too much, and it does feel quite convoluted when it's explaining stuff.
Yeah.
Because the Batman's narration when he's saying, "Oh, Chase Meridian is the key." The envelope like explained it to him, and I'm like, how did the envelope explain it to you? I don't understand. Like, you have to...
everything that we know about her is that she was his eyes in the tower, right?
Yeah, Chase was working for, well, not working directly for Batman per se, but she was hired by Bruce to do a good job, and there was never a hint in the tower that she was anything other than a good character who was caught up in all this shit.
Also, one of the people in the group was the doctor responsible for the tower. His older sister. That was another layer that I was just like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
there's way too much exposition going on here.
Yeah, that felt like why have we added that?
Dr. Ware. There we go.
Yeah, Dr. Ware.
It's Dr. Ware's sister, and then I mean, I do love the idea of Riddler masterminding this and keeping his hands clean, because technically he never does anything.
No,
right? He just sends out the riddles, and then these people, it's their guilt that drives it. And just the idea of Caroline being kind of a crooked judge, right? And that was her guilt, because she wouldn't talk in the group about why she was in the group. And Meridian's like, that's fine, but it ends up being she feels guilty for, kind of letting things slide that maybe she shouldn't have in Gotham. And
yeah, she talks about how when she eventually killed someone, it was actually like a relief, because now instead of worrying that she's responsible for death, she knows she is. So it was a comfort that she's just done it. Honestly, like the more I'm thinking about it, the more the plot is this convoluted thing that really falls apart at the end. What I did like when it's like Batman has to go and save Chase Meridian, and and her, because they're both on like the scales of justice at the statue.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that Cass shows up to help. They kind of just gloss over that, I mean, Cass clearly saves Chase, but
Yeah.
like we never get like after all the stuff that came up before, I was really expecting like a scene where Batman or maybe even just Cass like asks Chase a couple of questions just to clear up like her involvement, and like was she like knowingly involved in any of this, or was it this is just how everyone else met and then she became a victim by being there kind of thing. So that was a little bit weird.
The way that I read it though is like she put that group together because that was her job, right? As a psychologist and someone that's running this Arkham Tower for rehabilitation. And so maybe that's how she's responsible. Is like the whole scheme wouldn't have happened if she didn't put all these people in the same room. But I don't think this is some masterminded, Chase as a
I don't think so either.
Yeah, like it's just, but it's like you said, convoluted.
Yeah.
Needlessly elaborate.
Yeah. Well, once it gets to just the saving people, the action scene is fun and well drawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like the scene between Batman and Deb. But everything to get is there is pretty convoluted. It's sad to say. But it's a very mixed bag of an ending. It does kind of feel like they had to squeeze in so much of their ideas into maybe like just 2 less issues than they actually needed. If they'd be able to spread it out over more and kind of properly establish a lot of the things they were doing. But like you say, there's so much just to kind of explain very quickly. That it doesn't, and none of it feels like anything none of it feels organic in a way. It's like, oh, that all makes sense. It all it does is raise more questions that aren't really addressed.
Right, that's why I kind of was waiting for the Riddler to be like, yeah, isn't that the ultimate riddle, Batman? Like that it was kind of, it should have been less explained, right, instead of more explained. But yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a whimper, sadly. I do wonder if like just being constrained into however many issues was the problem, but it's kind of this weird add-on to Tamaki's run, because it kind of feels like you could easily probably just ignore this last arc and have the tower be the ending of the whole thing, which is for the long run is probably for the better.
Right.
But there's a co-writer on this arc, which obviously kind of already slightly separates it, and maybe that's part of the issue here.
Yeah.
That could be that, but yeah, so which is maybe why it's okay. Some of these ideas are pretty good, but maybe it's the execution, and that maybe is more on the script writer than it is where the stories are coming from. But
true.
I never read the backup.
Yeah, so just this is again, Gotham Girl feels like it's Chase that set this all up for, the death of her friend. And so Huntress comes in and saves Dr. Meridian from Gotham Girl. And there's a fight, and I forget Gotham Girl's origin, how she got powers, but she's basically a Kryptonian without the Kryptonian weaknesses, right? She's shooting lasers from her eyes. Huntress is trying to evade her. And then Dr. Meridian ends up being able to kind of ground her using some, therapy techniques. And Gotham Girl is blaming her for all of this, and come to find out that it was someone else that had access to Dr. Meridian's computer, and that she was the one that wanted to basically pin everything on Gotham Girl because she can't be trusted because she's crazy and has superpowers. And it kind of gets into the stigma of like mental health and whatever, which is a really nice sentiment to go. It kind of gets messy. And so when Gotham Girl finds out it was this other person that works at the Arkham Tower, she flicks her ear off, like, with her super strength. And they're like, well, no, you can't do that. So she goes up, like, almost to, like, punish herself. She goes up to the upper atmosphere where there's no air, and then, kind of falls back. And she compares it to being on medication for her, for her mental stuff. And and that, you know, when you're up there and you're not thinking about anything, that's when you feel free, but there's always a come down. So she ends up back in, you know, the ruins of Wayne Manor. Huntress shows up there and brings her some dinner, and they just get talking about how, you know, Gotham Girl's really powerful, but she's strong because she puts, you know, she puts herself out there, and that's something that Huntress really can't do. And that, you know, she's still here, that no matter what everyone says about Gotham Girl still shows up. And it's this really nice sentiment that, you know, that you still, you know, made everything right for your friend, even though you didn't have to. And then come to find out that Talia is kind of the one that put this into going, like the whole website and Dr. Meridian and all this other stuff. She kind of put that plan into play because she wants Gotham Girl to become her own personal Superman. So Talia is definitely up to some things in the pages of Detective Comics. Will Ram V pick up those threads? I have no idea, but we'll see.
Maybe whatever Tamaki's doing next is going to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that she wrote the backup.
No, yeah, this is a sign of grace.
Yeah.
But I will say the art by Dave Lapham is really good. There's this page at the end where you can, you know, it's got Huntress and Gotham Girl talking, and it goes from like, it closes up on Gotham Girl's fist and then Huntress's hand on top of it, and then just, it's kind of cut off, but the story is told in the eyes, where it's Gotham Girl like looking like, oh, finally someone understands me, and it's really nice. And then Lapham's Talia looks great, you know, very clean lines. Puts, you know, the colorist is working because it's all, she's in one of her temples, but she's in this like super green, you know, dress with designs on it, and it really stands out. But yeah, it was okay. I feel like this might read better altogether. Like this was almost like if they'd done an annual size something, or like a Gotham Girl special.
If you take the 3-part backups and put them together, yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, it might have been just better as one full story instead of trying to seed this out. But it was kind of doing something similar with the Meridian story, which I thought was weird. Like you would think the editors would have had them change something, which again makes me believe that the main story was supposed to go a little bit longer, right? But who knows at this point?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. What are we giving the book then?
So the main story I'm gonna give a 6, and the backup I'm gonna give a 6.5. So we'll just say Detective Comics itself is a 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give the main story probably a 6 as well. It's a bit of a shame because I do think like the action once we get to the you know, because the actual paneling and the sequencing of like you know, both Batgirl and Batman like jumping down to grab the victims on the statue, I think that's like really well paced out and a really good action scene. I mean, it's Ivan Reis on art, so you know he knows what he's doing. But sadly, it's just too convoluted as an ending to the story to be that satisfying.